Level 1, the volunteer. You don't apply to the SAS. You volunteer. The distinction matters. Every man who attempts selection is already a trained soldier in the British Armed Forces. Infantry, Parachute Regiment, Royal Marines, Royal Engineers, sometimes RAF Regiment, or Royal Signals. You've done your Phase 1 and Phase 2 training. You've served a minimum of 3 years. You've deployed. Northern Ireland, Afghanistan, Iraq, Sierra Leone. You are already good, better than most soldiers in your unit. And then you see the notice, United Kingdom Special Forces Selection. Twice a year, summer and winter. The notice doesn't promise anything. It doesn't recruit with slogans or incentives. It states the date, the location, and the eligibility requirements. You must be under 32. You must be fit enough to pass the standard British Army PFT before you're even allowed to start. You must have the recommendation of your commanding officer, an OF3 or above, who will assess your discipline, intelligence, motivation, and physical fitness. You submit your name. You tell your mates in the regiment. Some laugh, some respect it. Your sergeant major signs the paperwork with a look that says either well done or you're an idiot, and you can't tell which. You report to the infantry battle school in Brecon, South Wales. The Brecon Beacons, rain-soaked mountains that look like God designed them specifically to break British soldiers. 125 candidates in your intake. You look around the room and every man in it has a beret and a deployment and a reason for being here. Paratroopers, Marines, Infanteers from line regiments, a few engineers, a signaller. All of them think they're hard enough. The directing staff, fully badged SAS men, stand at the front. They don't shout. They don't motivate. They don't insult. They explain the program in flat, disinterested tones. They will observe. They will assess. They will say nothing about your performance. Welcome to the hills. Level 2, the selection. The hills phase lasts 4 weeks. It takes place in the Brecon Beacons and the Elan Valley and the Black Mountains of South Wales in terrain that is steep, featureless in fog, and hostile in ways that have killed candidates before and will kill them again. You carry a burden that increases in weight daily. 35 pounds, then 45, then 55, plus a rifle, plus water. You march between checkpoints across open mountain using only a map and compass because GPS is not permitted, and the cloud cover is so low that visual navigation is impossible half the time. At each checkpoint, a DS marks your card and gives you the next grid reference. No words, no encouragement, no indication of whether you're on pace or falling behind. The silence is deliberate. The SAS requires self-motivation, because on operations there's no sergeant screaming you forward. There's only you and the mission and the weather and whatever your body has left to give. You climb Pen Y Fan, 886 meters. The fan dance sends you up one side and down the other and back again with a full Bergen and the wind driving rain into your face sideways. You do it in a time you'll never be told was good enough until the week is over and your name is either on the list or it isn't. Candidates drop by the day. Twisted ankles, hypothermia, exhaustion, broken will. A man who ran marathons quits on day 6 because his mind broke before his legs did. The hills don't care about your fitness. They care about what's underneath your fitness. The final march is the long drag. 40 miles with a 55-pound Bergen in under 24 hours across the mountains. Solo. No route given, just checkpoints, and your navigation and your legs and whatever conversation you're having with yourself inside your own skull that keeps you moving when every synapse is telling you to sit down. Of your 125, roughly 20 are left, maybe fewer. Level 3, the continuation. You've passed the hills. You are not yet SAS. You're not even close. Continuation training begins immediately. 14 weeks of tactics, techniques, and procedures at Sterling Lines, the SAS headquarters in Hereford. You learn advanced weapons handling, not just the SA-80 and Glock you're familiar with. every weapon the regiment uses, and every weapon your enemies use. AK-47 variants, PKM machine guns, RPGs, foreign pistol systems. You learn to strip, assemble, and fire them all because on operations behind enemy lines, you may need to use captured weapons when your own ammunition runs dry. You learn patrolling, ambush drills, break contact procedures, close target reconnaissance, demolitions, dynamic CQB shooting, vehicle handling at speeds and in situations that would void any civilian insurance policy, then the jungle, 6 weeks in Brunei or Belize in equatorial heat and humidity that strips weight from your body at a rate of 10 to 14 pounds over the course. You learn long-range reconnaissance patrolling in primary jungle, navigating under triple canopy where the GPS signal doesn't penetrate and the vegetation is so thick you can hear a man breathing 3 meters away but can't see him. You operate on hard routine. No talking, no cooking, no fires, no movement except when tactically necessary. You eat cold rations and sleep in a hammock and defecate into a bag that you carry with you because leaving any trace of human presence compromises the patrol. Then combat survival. You evade a hunter force drawn from the Special Forces support group across open Welsh countryside for days. When caught, and you are caught deliberately, you undergo tactical questioning, stress positions, white noise, interrogators who scream and interrogators who charm and interrogators who threaten. You give only the big four: name, rank, number, date of birth. Everything else, I'm sorry, but I cannot answer that question. For hours. The men who break are returned to their unit. The men who don't receive the beige beret with the winged dagger. Welcome to the regiment. Level 4, the trooper. You are badged. You are SAS, and your rank is trooper. Regardless of what you were before, corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, you revert to trooper. The lowest rank in the regiment. This is deliberate. The SAS strips rank because it strips ego. Inside the regiment, competence determines authority, not what you wore on your sleeve in your previous unit. You're assigned to a saber squadron, A, B, D, or G. Within your squadron, you're assigned to one of 4 troops, each specializing in a different method of insertion. Air troop for free-fall parachuting, including halo and hey-ho. Boat troop for maritime operations, including diving and kayak insertion. Mountain troop for alpine and Arctic warfare. And mobility troop for vehicle-mounted operations across open desert and hostile terrain using armed Land Rovers and ATVs. You request air troop because you want to jump. The regiment grants your request because in the SAS, the trooper's preference matters in a way it doesn't anywhere else in the British Army. Your first year is probation. The badged men in your troop watch you, not with suspicion, with assessment. They've seen new troopers who shone in selection and crumbled in the squadron. Selection tests endurance and will. The squadron tests judgment, teamwork, and the ability to operate in a 4-man patrol where every man depends on every other man absolutely, and the nearest reinforcement is a helicopter that may be hours away. You train constantly. Free fall jumps from 25,000 feet in oxygen masks. CQB packages in the killing house at Hereford with live ammunition. Language training because the SAS deploys to places where English is useless, and cultural fluency is the difference between a successful patrol and a compromised one. Level 5, the patrol member. You've been in the regiment 2 years, you've deployed. Afghanistan, Iraq. A task in Africa you will never discuss. You operate in a 4-man patrol, the fundamental unit of the SAS since David Sterling built the regiment in the North African desert in 1941. Each man in the patrol has a specialization: signals, demolitions, medicine, or linguist. Yours is signals. You carry the radio equipment, maintain encrypted communications with the FOB and with headquarters at Hereford, and can build a field antenna from materials scavenged in the operating environment. In a 4-man patrol, there are no passengers. Every man can do every job. The specializations exist because someone needs to be the best at each discipline. But cross-training means that If 2 men in your patrol are killed, the surviving 2 can still complete the mission. You conduct close target reconnaissance on a Taliban compound in Helmand province. Your patrol inserts by helicopter 15 kilometers from the target and walks in at night over terrain that is mined and patrolled. You establish a hide site 400 meters from the compound and observe for 72 hours. 4 men in a hole covered with very Hessian and local vegetation. You log every movement, every face, every weapon, every pattern of life. The intelligence you gather will determine whether a strike force of 60 men hits that compound next week. If your reconnaissance is good, the assault succeeds and people survive. If your reconnaissance is wrong, men die. That weight sits on every observation report you write. You extract on foot the same way you came in, 15 kilometers through darkness to the helicopter pickup point, and 36 hours later you're drinking tea in the squadron lines at Camp Bastion as if nothing happened. This is the bread and butter, not the embassy sieges the public sees on television. The quiet, unseen work that makes everything else possible. Level 6, the corporal. Promoted within the regiment. You now lead a 4-man patrol. You are responsible for the planning, execution, and survival of your team on operations that range from long-range reconnaissance to direct action raids to hostage rescue. The SAS corporal carries authority that far exceeds the rank in the conventional army. You plan your own operations. You receive a mission brief from the troop commander, a captain, and then you go away and build the plan yourself. Routes, timelines, contingencies, extraction plans, communications schedules, emergency rendezvous points. You brief it back. If the plan is sound, the troop commander approves it. If it isn't, he sends you away to fix it. He doesn't fix it for you. The regiment expects its NCOs to think like officers and its officers to listen to its NCOs. That culture is sacred, and it began with Sterling, and it has survived every institutional attempt to erode it since. Your squadron rotates onto counterterrorism duty. One Sabre squadron is always on standby to respond to a terrorist incident within the United Kingdom. You're now part of the Special Projects Team, what the public would call the Counterterrorism Team. The CRW, Counter-Revolutionary Warfare, Wing, the Black Kit, the Respirators, the MP5s and Glocks and frame charges and stun grenades. You train in the Killing House daily, live hostages played by regiment men sitting in chairs while your team blows the door and puts rounds into targets inches from their heads. The trust required is absolute. 1 flinch, 1 deviation, and you kill a colleague. You train until the drills are autonomic, until the building entry sequence lives in your hands and your feet and not in your conscious mind. Because when the call comes, and the Iranian embassy proved it comes, there is no time to think, only to execute. Level 7, the sergeant. You've served 6 years in the regiment. You are a senior NCO, and you carry the institutional knowledge that makes the SAS function. You know the drills, the tactics, the equipment, the personalities, the history, the failures. You've been on task in Northern Ireland, running covert surveillance operations against Republican paramilitaries in bandit country along the border. You've operated in civilian clothes, driving civilian cars, carrying concealed weapons, living in safe houses for months. The SAS in Northern Ireland didn't look like the SAS the public imagines. No black kit, no abseiling, surveillance and intelligence gathering, and, when authorized, direct action against active service units planting bombs. You've been in Iraq during the worst of it, 2005 to 2008, running the same kind of high-tempo target and hit operations that your American counterparts in Delta Force were running alongside you in Baghdad and the Sunni Triangle. Hit a compound at 0200, gather intelligence, phones, documents, hard drives, anything with data. Feed it to the analysts who are waiting in a tent 200 meters away. The analysts process the intelligence in hours and identify the next link in the network. Hit that compound the following night, and the next, and the next. The tempo is relentless, and the effect is devastating. The SAS and Delta worked so closely in Baghdad and Basra that the operational boundaries between the two units effectively disappeared. Same targets, same briefing rooms, same helicopters, same risks. You carry scars, a round that grazed your arm in Helmand, shrapnel in your thigh from an IED in Basra, tinnitus from breaching charges that no hearing protection fully stops. Your knees are damaged from years of carrying heavy loads over Welsh mountains and Afghan valleys. The regiment medical officer knows every operator's injury profile and manages them with the pragmatic understanding that no one in the SAS will ever admit to being unfit for operations until their body physically refuses to function. Level 8, the senior NCO Staff Sergeant, then Warrant Officer Class 2, Squadron Sergeant Major. You are the senior enlisted man in a Sabre squadron of 60 operators. The OC, a major, commands the squadron. You run it. Discipline, standards, training, equipment, welfare, operational readiness. You mentor the young troopers the way someone mentored you. Not with lectures, with presence, with the way you carry yourself on operations at 44 with the same precision you had at 28. When a trooper is struggling, drinking, marriage collapsing, carrying something from a deployment he can't put down, you notice, because you've seen it before and because you've lived some version of it yourself. You've also been offered the regimental sergeant major position, RSM of 22 SAS, the senior enlisted man in the entire regiment, a warrant officer class 1. You'd be responsible for the standards and traditions of an organization that has existed since 1941 and whose reputation's the most valued asset in British special operations. The winged dagger, who dares wins. The weight of that motto is not symbolic. Men have died proving it. You accept. You move into the RSM's office at Sterling Lines, and the weight of the appointment settles on you immediately. You walk the corridors, and every photograph on the wall is a man who served where you serve. Some of them are smiling in desert fatigues, some are in jungle kit, some are in the black assault gear from the Iranian embassy siege in 1980, the operation that put the SAS on the world stage and changed the public's understanding of what special forces could do. Some of them didn't come home. You carry their standard now. You maintain the traditions they built, and you ensure that the men who follow will be worthy of the regiment they inherit. Level 9, the retiree. SAS soldiers typically serve until age 40 on a 22-year career. Some serve longer, most don't. The regiment takes a physical toll that makes extended service impossible for all but the most durable. You leave quietly. There's no parade. The SAS doesn't do parades. There's a function in the sergeant's mess. Drinks with men you've served with for a decade or more. Men who've carried you when you were wounded and whom you've carried in return. Men whose children know your face because you've spent Christmases at their houses when deployments kept you in Hereford and away from your own family. The goodbyes are understated because SAS men don't do sentiment publicly. But the handshakes last longer than necessary. You take a job. Private military contracting in the Middle East or Africa. Executive protection for corporations or governments or individuals whose threat level requires men with your specific training. Some former SAS men go to MI6, the Secret Intelligence Service, joining E Squadron or the Increment, for deniable operations in countries where British soldiers cannot officially be present. The pay in the private sector is extraordinary compared to your military salary. £400 a day, £600. More in high-threat environments. You earn £35,000 a year as a trooper. The disparity is absurd, but you didn't join for the money, and you know it. You joined because of something you can't articulate to anyone who wasn't there. The sense that you were part of the best, that the four-man patrol in the Afghan mountains or the Iraqi desert or the northern Irish border country was the purest form of soldiering that exists, and nothing in civilian life will replicate it. You try. You adjust. You find that the only people who understand the specific frequency of your experience are the men you served with. So you see them at reunions, at funerals, at quiet pubs in Hereford where the barman knows not to ask questions. Level 10, the cycle. Right now, somewhere in the British Army, a lance corporal in the parachute regiment, or a marine in 40 Commando, or a private in an infantry battalion is reading a notice on a board. UKSF selection. Summer intake. He's 25. He's done a tour in Afghanistan, or a deployment to Estonia, or a training exercise in Kenya. He's fit, and he's capable, and he's restless in a way that his chain of command recognizes because they've seen it before in the men who eventually leave for Hereford. He's thinking about the Brecon Beacons, about the fan dance, about the long drag with a 55-pound Bergen in the Welsh rain. He's thinking about the winged dagger and the beige beret and the words, "Who dares wins." He's talked to a mate who attempted selection and failed and who told him it was the hardest thing he'd ever done, and that the hills broke something in him that hasn't fully healed. He's talked to another mate who passed and who told him almost nothing because that's what the regiment requires. He doesn't know what it costs. The marriages that don't survive the deployments, the children who grow up with a father who's present in body when he's home but whose mind is still in a compound in Basra or a hide site in Helmand. The injuries that accumulate silently until your body is a museum of damage held together by ibuprofen and stubbornness, and the refusal to admit you're hurt. The friends on the wall at Sterling Lines who didn't come back, he doesn't know any of this. He knows the date. He knows where to report. He writes his name on the list. Of the 125 who assemble in Brecon, 10 will earn the beret. He intends to be one of them. They all do. That's what makes it selection. The regiment doesn't chase anyone. It never has. It opens a door and waits to see who walks through. The cycle begins again.